Hi, this is Lenny Librizzi. The following report was filed by the Staten Island Environmental Communicators in February of 2021 on the proposed River North development in St. George and the developer's request for variances to build towers taller than currently allowed. Here is an update. At their June general meeting, Staten Island Community Board 1 voted to reject the developer's request for 23 variances. The vote was 26-1. Staten Island Borough President James Oddo has also rejected this request. Both the Borough President and the Community Board votes and opinions are advisory. The project can still move forward if approved by the City Council. Here is the original report by the Staten Island Environmental Communicators.
Welcome to Staten Island Environmental Communicators. I'm Kathleen Harris, and today we have Lenny Librizzi, and we're going to be talking about a number of topics today. The first topic we're going to be talking about is the developments that are coming up in St. George, which is closest to the Staten Island Ferry.
Kathleen, this development project in St. George, it's called River North, or at least part of it is. It's kind of complicated because it seems like there's two development projects that have been combined. And the reason they're combining them is because they want to change the zoning to allow for taller buildings. Buildings that in the preliminary designs look to be somewhere between 12 and 26 stories tall. Now, this site has been a long vacant site that has had failed projects. And there's been already some community opposition and some people who were just in favor of doing something to get rid of the eyesore that's there. But the borough president, James Oddo, is vehemently against it, at least currently. And he sent out an email blast where he said, and I quote, "Unchecked and unfettered density without the slightest genuine concern for infrastructure is a movie we've seen before here on Staten Island. Let's talk housing needs and smart growth, for sure, but don't allow R7 zoning to get a foothold in our borough." That's the end of his quote. The R7 zoning he's talking about is a designation that would allow this type of taller buildings and this type of development. So the location, to tell you a little bit more about the location, it's right across the street from a shuttered behemoth parking garage that was built for the failed Ferris wheel project. The big wheel, it was called. Hasn't been built yet, but the parking garage is there and it's closed. A stadium that was built for the Staten Island Yankees, and that team no longer exists, so that's vacant as well. And then there is a outlet mall right next to that that has many vacant storefronts and a promised food court that still hasn't materialized. So the original proposal was by a group called Madison Capital Realty, and then a second proposal is now by a Brooklyn developer called ZHL Group. And there are two Staten Island architect planners on that group, Pablo Bengochea and Timothy Boylan. Their group is called V+B. And some more details. The ZHL Group created an economic development opportunity zone, which would give them tax deferrals because of their developing in what they're characterizing as an economically deprived neighborhood. Some of the residents might, have dispute that characterization.
Right.
So the site, the total site is approximately 100,000 square feet. There's a lot of little lots that are part of it. So it's very large. The developers have made some promises to the community that one was that they will, as part of the development, there will be 7,790 square feet, or about 7% of the total area, as a outdoor landscaped area. And the way they termed it, the majority of which will be available for public use, whatever that means. And another detail about the area is, again, right across the street is the long derelict North Shore Esplanade, which starts right across the street from where this site is. And that's a linear park that, is just in terrible disrepair. Of course, on the positive side, this location is very near to the St. George transportation hub, which includes the ferry, many bus lines, and the Staten Island Railway. On the other side, and also amazing views of the city from there. How will this project impact traffic, local schools, sewers, air quality? That hasn't been determined yet. And a little editorializing here, any new development that is proposed should be designed to minimize its environmental impact. So that includes using environmental friendly building materials and techniques, a net zero energy use in the buildings, and designs that take into account sea level rise and climate change. This project does not seem to include any of those details.
I have a question. So what they're calling River North, that's 750 units, right? These are apartments though, right? They're not going to be selling, these aren't going to be condos, do you know?
I'm not sure whether they'll be rentals or for sale. I mean, sometimes developers start off wanting to sell the properties, and then when they don't sell, they start renting them, or vice versa. Right. So I think it's too early to determine that.
And also the River North, interesting, they used to call it Liberty Towers. And I think that the reason that they got rid of the word towers is probably because of people so concerned about the height of it, right? So now it's called River North. Now that's 750 units. And then the other, what they're calling the Richmond Terrace project, that's 100 units. So they're talking about a total right now of 850 apartments, right? The River North, though, they're dedicating 225 of those units for a middle class, or people, middle class people, but the majority of it is going to be for people with much more money. That's my understanding, right?
Yes, this new zoning is actually something called R7-3/4, and that allows for both mixed income, or it actually requires that a certain percentage of the units be for lower income. That number of what's the income level is still, I don't believe, has been determined yet. And also for mixed use, which could include storefronts and other types of usages in that particular development.
Right. Now, but they have Empire Outlets, which is, isn't being used to its full potential. They're going to be adding more residential, more stores. Are they talking about even supermarkets? I mean, where are these 850 homes going to buy, their groceries?
Well, that would be a benefit to the whole community if they did put a grocery store in there, because there isn't a grocery store right there. There's one maybe half a mile away, but it's a relatively small one, a Key Food. But yeah, so all of those benefits have yet to be determined, or even if the project will go forward as it's proposed. Also on the other side of the ferry terminal, there's a big tower going up right now that's not quite complete. That's partly residential as well. So
Mhm.
lots of development there that is in some stage of being constructed and utilized.
Mhm. It's just kind of interesting, how they're going to handle the traffic. It's just, hopefully that the community board one and the city council, as well as the borough president and the residents actually, get their input into this, for this project, for these many projects.
Yeah, very often, it doesn't happen quite so much on Staten Island, but very often in other boroughs, developers will propose a 100-story building
Mhm.
as sort of like a bargaining tool. And then they'll take 80 stories. It's still
Right.
a really tall building. And they cut it down a couple of stories because of, community outrage, but it still ends up being a mega development.
Right. Yeah. It's just, yeah, it's something that we're going to be watching, and getting all the other environmental groups and community and people to get their input. So, but thank you.